Now that Orphie has officially released, and I'm sure many others were curious about what changed or was buffed about her, since there were many disclaimers and warnings about Orphie's perceived gameplay on the creator server as opposed to what would be released on live. With this, today I'll be breaking down the impact, changes, and my thoughts on Orphie from the old to new version. But as a reminder guys, there will be content from today's video from the creator beta server, so some of what you see, especially today, will likely be changed / adjusted. But if you enjoyed this kind of breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But now a word from today's sponsor. If you're like me and find yourself wanting to pull for agents in ZenlessZoneZero, you probably know how quickly these costs can add up and just how fast your bank can call you too. Thankfully though, there's another way to get the same items cheaper than in game, and that's by using today's sponsor, Lootbar. Lootbar is a platform that works for Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and of course ZenlessZoneZero, and the layout is clean while the routing is exactly the same as in game, so you know exactly where everything is right away. Now once you select ZenlessZoneZero from the menu, you'll notice the savings immediately. Lootbar offers up to 23% cheaper prices compared to buying directly in-game, and if you're a new user, you also get a 10% off coupon on top of this, making your first recharge even better. Now take a look at this pack here. In the in-game shop, you'd pay the full price, but on Lootbar, it's definitely noticeably lower. This difference might not seem huge at first, but over time, this definitely adds up. And the best part of all is that the process is super quick. You just enter your account ID, confirm the pack, and your order is delivered in around 30 minutes, safe, fast, and secure. So if you want to top up monochromes in ZenlessZoneZero, definitely check out Lootbar. Just click the link in the comment section or description to get started, and don't forget, new users get a 10% off coupon. Don't miss out today. Thanks again to Lootbar again for sponsoring today's video. First, in terms of the old versus new changes, a quick TLDR is that a few of her animations are shorter and do now allow you to swap off a bit quicker. Now, one of the most important changes here, however, is in regards to her EX special. Heat Charge, which is her held EX special after a certain amount of resource has been generated, is now quicker to allow you to swap off a field. Previously, this used to force you to watch the laser transform for a little bit, which was actually more annoying than you'd think, since you'd likely be doing this often and it would sometimes cause discomfort or awkwardness when playing her. But in addition to this, her on-field EX special, Watch Your Step, was also recently adjusted to be slightly stronger, though this is not nearly as relevant as how quick and impactful Orphie has now been changed in terms of her off-field play. As a TLDR of what these implications mean now for her, she can swap, apply her aftershocks, deal damage off-field with Vortex, and deal much more damage in general, since there is less animation locking and more time for her to actually use her abilities. Now we should actually talk about Orphie in the current Deadly Assault, as I did end up testing her quite a bit on stream. Now she is currently definitely decent when used alongside Seed, SoldierZero Anby, or Evelyn, and you may think to use her against Pompey and other fire weak enemies. However, in actuality, you'll likely use her with basically any aftershock using agents, like I previously mentioned, alongside Seed and SoldierZero Anby, and with this, you won't necessarily need to bring her against fire weak enemies, as opposed to just avoiding fire resistant ones instead, though of course we'll see about that when it comes to Typhon. Now, from my testing with SoldierZero Anby on live, as opposed to how it was on the creator server, this was actually where it felt like she changed the least, as it wasn't nearly as annoying to swap from Anby to Orphie or vice versa, and both had reasonably similar performances in terms of DPS. That said, Orphie and SoldierZero Anby were still pretty competitive on the live servers, and I actually closed the gap from Seed and SoldierZero Anby to about 3,000 to 4,000 on live, though of course I didn't have enough sample size or testing to make a hard call on whether this was a true buff or just the possibility that I got lucky. Now, when it comes to Evelyn alongside Orphie, the two are still as strong as you'd imagine them to be. Pompey takes quite a beating with this lineup still, and assuming you have at least one other limited agent like Lighter or Astra, the team is very respectable, though still worse than SoldierZero Anby. To be fair though, the places where you'd use Samby as opposed to Evelyn do have specific nuances or biases, which makes comparing them quite difficult. So overall, I just consider the buffs to Orphie's play in this case a win, so that Evelyn doesn't have to worry about juggling or swapping her around too annoyingly anymore. For Seed, Orphie is clearly her best partner, and compared to my previous score prior to Orphie's release, I had a massive 5,000 to 6,000 score increase over Evelyn, which is pretty impressive. That said, this jump in performance was from something like 35,000 to 42,000 as opposed to something like 14,000 to 20,000. So ultimately, as it was predicted and felt in the creator beta server, this min-maxing was definitely nice, but it's definitely also overkill at times, especially with the current lineup or buffs. Who knows though, as these recent Deadly Assault buffs don't feel super amazing for most characters, and we've definitely seen the buffs be weaker in recent times, so maybe this is actually something more necessary than we think if we want to see SoldierZero Anby or Orphie actually be strong. Finally, when it came to Orphie as a solo carry, she was actually way more fluid and smooth feeling as opposed to before. To add to this, Orphie's on-field field performance was also buffed, not just in terms of damage, but animation / feel as well. This is also likely one of the most obvious visual plus gameplay plus feel buffs that Orphie received, but that said, despite people showcasing Orphie at Mindscape 6 with 2 limited supports, activating their second Mindscapes, or giving a very vague description for how they were built, Orphie as a solo DPS is still about what you'd expect it to be. It's okay if you want to play it, it's just not as amazing or going to be comparable to most variations where you have a dedicated DPS or a sub DPS at least to pair her with. Overall, I'm pretty shocked with the changes that were released with Orphie's banner, as I wasn't really given any other details or news aside from the fact that the character would just be improved in gameplay and feel. That said, these changes were some of the most relevant and desirable changes you could make for Orphie, as she otherwise didn't feel bad in most respects in terms of DPS, she just rather felt a bit clunky at times. That's going to be it for today's video though, guys, and as a small treat, I'll be including a comparison of 2 runs shown simultaneously just so you can observe the differences yourself. But before I do, I just want to remind you all that I'm certainly not great with these teams, and more of a showcase rather than a lesson on how to play the lineups I'm about to show. Thanks again for watching though, guys. Hope you enjoy. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.
Nothing slips through my Heads up. Removing threat. Who do you need? In the name of hope. Don't cross the line. Nothing reaches my spot. I knew it would be. Your journey ends with me. So we fight together. Cross the line. Heads up. The best defense is a strong offense. Don't even try. Music is the rhythm of life. Nothing reaches my defense.